We do want to get back to this breaking news out of our nation's capital.
A massive search and rescue operation is currently underway, as you can see right there, as the sun is just now starting to come up in the Potomac River after a passenger plane crash last night.
Yeah, officials say the American Airlines jet collided with the military Black Hawk helicopter just before 9 last night. That video right there showing that moment of impact right there near the middle of your screen.
And all this information is just coming to us so quickly and new and updated this morning. We want to give you a live look now. Again, this is the scene here. Dozens of emergency crews continuing to respond here on the scene.
Yeah, that American Airlines flight was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. As we mentioned, the Black Hawk helicopter had 3 crew members on board.
And that video of that crash is just hard to watch. There are still, of course, a lot of questions this morning, including what exactly led up to that collision, how many people are dead, and where this investigation goes from here.
We do want to bring in our chief transportation correspondent and pilot, Maykay Beeler, to talk more about this crash. Maykay, this is heartbreaking, and I know as a pilot, you can't help but start to take this apart. What do we think happened?
So devastating and shocking. This is a tough one to talk about. So there's a lot of speculation already. We can't speculate, but obviously some type of miscommunication. Right, so we have ATC at work here at guiding the aircraft. So the CRJ, the regional aircraft, had been cleared to land. It was only at 400 feet, cleared to land on runway 33, and apparently the Black Hawk military helicopter was in the vicinity and was asked if they had the aircraft in sight. According to reports, apparently they did. So what happened? Who didn't see who? Did the regional jet ever have a chance of seeing the helicopter? Was the helicopter behind them? We don't know. There's a lot of questions.
Well, and we have audio of that, so of course investigators are going to be picking that apart. But when you walked in this morning, you said, of course this is significant and heartbreaking, but it's significant because this is the last time that we had a commercial airline passenger plane crash was 2009, and when that happened, it really reshaped the industry.
Yes, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. So 2009, and this was a regional aircraft also. It was a prop plane, and that was in Buffalo. And the NTSB decided that the crew was kind of inexperienced. Did they meet all the requirements? Yes, but compared to today's standards, they were inexperienced. It was really an icing situation. Plus, they didn't respect sterile cockpits. Anytime you're below 10,000 feet, all the conversation has to be checklist, airplane, landing, airport. It can't be, we're going to go eat at the Cracker Barrel for dinner. And it was determined that on that flight, in 2009, the last commercial fatal flight in the United States was because sterile cockpit was not observed fatigue, and they didn't recover from an icing situation. This situation, totally different. It just obviously a mid-air collision, so communication issue. The ATC tapes, air traffic control, they're gonna look at those tapes, they're gonna listen to them, they're gonna interview the the controllers. Were they fatigued? Were they distracted? Did they do their job properly? Were the pilots fatigued? God bless, we don't know if there are going to be any survivors, but they will check remains for drugs. How many flights did they have that day? This American Airlines flight coming from Wichita. Fatigue, distraction. Night is always a tough thing, especially when you're low, because you've got the lights of Washington National, and you've got the stars, and you have other aircraft, so it's very hard at night sometimes to see. We're mostly looking at our instruments. But when it comes to landing, you have a flying captain or a flying pilot, a non-flying pilot. The flying pilot is flying the aircraft, either looking at instruments or outside. The non-flying pilot on the radio and doing checklists. So the pilots are always responsible, though, to look outside. Always.
Maykay,
if they can, if it's not cloudy, and it was not, yeah.
I want to touch on 2 things that you brought up there. One, people who aren't familiar with that airspace there, it's not uncommon to have Black Hawk helicopters flying around Reagan National Airport there. It's a very crowded airspace, but something like this is extremely uncommon. People have been talking about something called the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, as you say, TCAS. That's supposed to prevent something like this from happening, right?
Well, it helps prevent. Not all aircraft have them. The CRJ does. I don't know if it was working in this aircraft. Did they get a TCAS alert? It's just equipment that gives you an either traffic alert or traffic resolution. Traffic alert, traffic. or bells or whistles. The resolution advisory would tell you, turn left, climb, do this or that. Now they were low, they're at 400 feet. I don't know if the TCAS on the CRJ was working. Was it inhibited? Does it work at 400 feet? I can't answer that. But TCAS is just kind of a bell and whistle that most airliners have that help prevent, but you have to listen to it, pay attention to it. You can't inhibit it. And did it have a resolution telling you climb, descend, turn right? And sometimes it'll do it on its own. So we don't know. They were cleared to land. Things are happening very quickly. Very busy.
We know this is one of the most restricted airspaces in the country. You
Sure.
can't fly drones, anything like that. Help us understand who kind of takes control when you've got a regional jet and a military helicopter within that close to Reagan or any airport for that matter. Who takes over the control? Is it the ATC? Is it air traffic control that's working on approaching? Is that who pilots are listening to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're listening to the tower. If I'm cleared to land, I'm already talking to tower. This other aircraft, I don't know if he or she was talking to approach control or departure. I don't know if they were on the same frequency talking to tower. We need to find that out. There are a lot of questions. But yeah, ACT, the guys and gals in the tower, are in charge of that.
Well, what are investigators? Obviously, there's going to be a black box investigation.
Right. So
what
the
do they look
data,
at first?
Right, the data and the voice recorder. So they're going to look at that. Was there sterile cockpit?
Yeah.
Were they talking about, I'm going to go to the Cracker Barrel for dinner? Boy, am I tired. Oh, look at the Capitol. That looks really pretty. Or are they doing all their checklists, SOPs, standard operating procedures? What was going on in the Black Hawk? Were they talking back and forth? Were they focusing? Or were they distracted? Were they fatigued? They'll do drug tests, as I said earlier. How many hours had they flown that day? And ATC, the guys and gals in the tower, were they fatigued? Did they do all the right call outs? A lot of questions NTSB and FAA will be asking.
All right, our May K. Baylor, Chief Transportation Correspondent and pilot, providing us really valuable insight this morning. May K, we appreciate it. We're not done talking about this too. We'll have you back. We're also going to have our DC correspondent join us live later on this hour. Also, we're expecting to hear from Mayor Muriel Bowser and other officials. A 7:30 press conference is what it's scheduled for. Of course, these things are fluid, but we'll stay on top of this here.